Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim CAMPSALL, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner with us today. Something unique about my guest is he represented the U.S. in the coffee mixologist competition in Amsterdam in 2017. In his downtime, he enjoys cooking and has a number of cookbooks that he refers to. We'll have him tell us a little bit more about that here in a minute. And he's most proud of not only his business, but in college, he was a walk-on for Cornell University. So that is pretty cool in basketball. It is my pleasure to welcome Steve to the show today. Hi, Steve.
How's it going, Tim?
I'm awesome. Thanks
Yeah.
for asking. Hey, well, let's start with having you tell us tell us a little bit about you. Introduce yourself, your full name, and a bit of your personal story, like where you were born and where you live now, and about your family.
Sure. Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. Appreciate the chance to get on here and talk a little bit about the business. My name is Steve Hall. I am the co-founder of Tinker Coffee Co., which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly. Uh, Grew up actually born in Massachusetts. I'm sorry, grew up in Massachusetts. I was born in New York, but yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts. Most of my family is from just south of Boston. So grew up there and then eventually moved to Atlanta. My dad got a consulting job down in Atlanta back when revenue management was kind of first starting to be a thing, doing a lot of work with a lot of the airlines. So Delta, obviously being a big Atlanta hub, that got us down to Atlanta. Stayed there through high school, then went back to New York for college and then bounced around a little bit actually in the wine industry, sold wine in Boston and Chicago. And in Chicago, I actually met my now wife, who was in dental school at Case Western in Cleveland at the time. So I decided that it was a good time for me to go back and get my MBA. So I joined her in Cleveland at Case Western and got my MBA. And then eventually, after graduation, we moved back to Indy here, where my wife is from. So been in Indy ever since. Actually, been in Indy longer than any other place that I've lived in my life. So I'm officially a Hoosier now. So.
Yes, no, it's awesome. Tell us about cooking and you mentioned to me offline that you've got a number of cookbooks and recipes, and how'd you get into that?
Yeah, growing up, my dad was a big kind of home cook. He loved cooking for us and the family, and I definitely got a lot of great experience growing up, just watching him and observing. And in college, I went to the hotel school at Cornell, and of course, culinary is a pretty big part of the curriculum there. So learned a little bit more as far as culinary skills go there, and just developed a passion for home cooking and I've just, thankfully now with podcasts and everything else, I've been exposed to a lot of really interesting chefs that have put out some really interesting cookbooks. So, folks like Molly Baz, Maddie Matheson, Allison Roman, Yotan Ottolenghi. Anytime I hear or see a really interesting cookbook, I tend to grab it. So we've amassed a little bit of a library of cookbooks here at the house. But I love just finding a fun recipe and going through the whole process, even if it seems a little tedious, but building out a shopping list, going to the grocery store, getting everything together, the process of prepping for making a recipe kind of puts me in a bit of a flow state where you feel like you're focused, but it's not a major draw on you mentally. I just really enjoy that, and it's we've expanded my wife and I, we've kind of expanded our our skills, and now whenever we have a family gathering, we tend to hit the cookbooks pretty hard and find some unique things to make for the family whenever we get together. So just a really enjoyable activity that of course you get to eat afterwards, which is even
Yes.
better.
And walk on basketball. So my understanding is that means you weren't recruited, you just showed up and tried out. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was actually baseball. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
baseball. Yep, I grew up, playing baseball all through my whole life, and was recruited a little bit out of high school, not really much of anything. But I knew I wanted to try and play if I could. So when I got to Cornell, I bugged my roommate and I said, "Hey, I need you to come out with me and just get my arm in shape." And I did some, kind of basic workouts to get in tryout shape and. Yeah, tried out my sophomore year for the team. I was a catcher growing up, so I was lucky enough to make the team and made some of my best friends that I still keep in touch with and am close to this day through the baseball team. So definitely something that was a lot of work, but really rewarding and has paid off as far as friendships go through the rest of my life. So really proud of that
Yeah,
accomplishment.
that is awesome. So tell us, how did the business come about, and at what point, Steve, did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, so the business came about really my brother-in-law and I started Tinker together back in 2014. And the genesis of the business was that Jeff, my brother-in-law, was working at IBM at the time, and he was traveling around on different consulting projects and seen really cool coffee shops and kind of coffee cultures all over the country through his travels. And then would come back to Indy, and there certainly was a coffee culture here, but it just wasn't quite what it maybe was in cities like Chicago or St. Louis or Kansas City. And we saw this like really interesting trend growing with people's interest in specialty coffee and more kind of elevated coffee. And I had always enjoyed coffee. I drank coffee at that time, but I didn't really know too much about the industry.
Hmm.
But through his, on flights and things, Jeff actually read this book called God in a Cup. And the book kind of chronicles the early stages and travels of a few specialty coffee roasters here in the US, Stumptown, Intelligentsia, Counterculture. And Jeff read that book and was like, you got to read this book. It's so interesting. And the coffee industry is just really cool. And I read it and was really kind of amazed and fascinated by just how obviously global the coffee industry is, but also just how interesting coffee preparation is and how nuanced it can be. And so that kind of gave me the specialty coffee bug. And from there, I just we started to explore, more coffee. We started learning about how to cup coffees and how to evaluate coffees. And finally, we thought, man, this is something that we both really enjoy. I think there's a real opportunity here, and we can match this passion that we've developed with a really cool opportunity for the business. And we also have very complementary skill sets. I think that's a really important thing for business owners and founders is that if you can find someone who has a lot of complementary skills that maybe you don't, or you both are able to complement one another. That was such a huge advantage to us. I came from, of course, a wine background and wine sales, and have an e-commerce background as well. So that combined with Jeff's operational and finance and ultimately roasting abilities was just a really good pair. So that's what kind of gave us the confidence was, we felt like this is an industry that we're both really passionate about. So of course, one of those things where you're going to be putting a lot of hours in, so you better love what you do. That was checked off, and we also felt like there's definitely a market opportunity here for specialty coffee. So we had confidence going into it. Didn't necessarily feel like we were going to be, fighting a huge, or there was just a real opportunity for someone to do this in a little bit different way. So good market opportunity combined with our passion for coffee is what led us to start the business and give us the confidence that we would be successful.
That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about the business. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
So the business is called Tinker Coffee Co. We are a specialty coffee roaster. We are pretty diversified. We started the business as strictly a wholesale coffee roaster. So we would source coffees from all over the world, roast them really well, package them, and then sell them to different coffee shops or offices, churches, different businesses.
Right.
That's how we started, and part of it was just by necessity. We didn't, we'd learned a lot about roasting and the coffee business, but we certainly didn't know how to run cafes
Mhm.
or really anything
Yeah.
beyond just roasting and selling coffee. So we knew we had to start with just the wholesale side of things. But over time, we've developed more skills, we've built more skills, and now we not only support a pretty robust wholesale coffee program, but we have a pretty robust e-commerce presence online. So we have a successful monthly subscription. We do online sales. We also have our own cafes now. We have 5 cafes that we own and operate, and we work with an operating company actually for our 2 Indianapolis airport cafes.
Mm.
We also have a technical services department, so we're able to offer technical services, which is equipment. If we, we can sell and work on espresso machines or grinders or really anything that touches coffee in a coffee shop. We're able to sell and work on those pieces of equipment with our wholesale partners. We have a catering side of the business that we call Tinker Gemini, where we have mobile espresso bars that we're able to take out all over the state and the region, honestly, to provide on-site mobile espresso bars for customers. So yeah, it's a pretty kind of robust, diversified coffee business now. So our goal is to just really make specialty coffee fun and accessible to people, and to share kind of the just introduce people to the world of specialty coffee, which is pretty fun and interesting to us.
Yeah. I mentioned this to you offline, but just to give a little plug while we're recording this is, every time we go to the airport, my wife's like, nope, we're not going to that S place. We're going down to the Tinker place because the coffee is so much better. So,
Thank you for that. We appreciate it.
hey, Steve, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about one of your biggest challenges during the years that you've been building your business, and maybe somebody that came alongside you and helped you through that.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of working with a few people in my life that have given me some really good advice and guidance. One that I still remain in contact with to this day is Randy Stocklin, who was the CEO of One Click Ventures, which is kind of a multifaceted e-commerce business that was my first job here in Indianapolis out of business school. And one of the things that Randy really instilled in me, one of the core values of One Click was to act like an owner. So to take ownership of your piece of the business and act like you own the business.
Mm,
And that gave me a lot of confidence. It made me feel really empowered, even as I was still a pretty junior guy and
yeah.
at that time in my 20s. But I did really feel that sense of ownership for the channel that I was running. I was the director of customer acquisition at One Click, so I was managing a team that was primarily focused in search engine optimization
Mm,
tactics and search engine marketing, as well as PR outreach. And I just really felt like this was my channel. I was responsible for the business. I was respected and had a lot of just had a lot of ownership, had a lot of empowerment to run that channel, and that just again instilled a level of confidence in me that I hold to this day. And Randy and I still are able to catch up, via Zoom and just talk about business and what's going on in our lives, and I really respect that a lot and appreciate his guidance and kind of instilling that in me.
that's awesome. I'm gonna put you on the spot here a little bit, Steve, and I say put on the spot because I'm asking you to pick three people, and there's probably way more than three, but three people in your business journey that you're most grateful for them being there to help with your business's growth. So who are those three people and how they help you?
Yeah, so Randy's definitely one. I'll mention him again. I'll probably be able to find another one too. But one of the people that I also think about early on in my career that was really influential was when I was an intern in college, my junior year. I interned at a company called Parker Finch in Phoenix, Arizona. And what Parker Finch did was they managed homeowners associations. So they were kind of just a company that helped homeowners associations kind of achieve a little bit of economies of scale and help kind of systematize some processes for homeowners associations in Phoenix. And my role there was to help kind of systematize and organize some of their processes that they were working through as they grew. And Jim Small was the CEO of Parker Finch. And one of the things that I was most influenced by Jim is that he was really kind of the first CEO that I had worked under as a kid, really, 21, 22 years old. And what I learned from Jim was the really interesting mix of being friends with your employees and the people that you work with, but also in a way that commands respect. He just had such a
Mhm.
great leadership style. He was able to not only be just a fun friend to me and made me feel valued, but also I deeply respected him and the work that he did. You could tell that he was an extremely sharp, hardworking guy, but also was, a friend and was very down to earth and just a great leader to work under. So I credit him a lot with kind of developing my leadership style. Um, my dad obviously was a big influence in my life. Sadly, my dad passed away in 2019, but growing up, he always really encouraged me to be a leader, to think about the things that I could do really well, lean into my strengths, to find the things that I could really excel at. And I know he was very proud of us, both me and Jeff, as we started the business and grew the business. He was always willing to share his time and share advice. I remember as we were getting started, he came down from Atlanta to visit with me and Jeff for a day and put us through an intensive workshop to kind of plan out where we wanted Tinker to be over the next 5, 10, or 15 years. So
Sure.
I think back to that a lot. Yeah, he was an executive in his career and led several teams in several different disciplines. So it was always helpful for me to learn from him,
Mhm.
both on the practical business side, but also on the leadership side. So that was a big thing.
Yeah.
And also, actually, another example would be another person actually from my time at OneClick. His name was Keith Midkiff, and Keith was the CFO of OneClick Ventures at the time. And Keith and I worked together a little bit at OneClick, but really Keith and I, as we were getting Tinker off the ground, Keith did a really good job reaching out to me and just seeing how I was doing, checking in, wanting to get together. And I remember Keith was another person who really helped me to think about not so much the areas of opportunity where, maybe you feel like I don't necessarily have this skill or I haven't really developed this skill as well as I could. His focus is more on think about the things that you're really great at.
Yeah.
Think about your strengths and lean into your strengths versus trying to, get a skill that maybe you're in the bottom third, maybe you can get into the,
Yeah.
middle of skills. He was like, think about the things where you already excel, the things that come naturally to you and really lean into those strengths. So that was very helpful for me as we were again getting the business off the ground to think about what I was good at, the things that I really excelled at, and to lean into those to help support the business. So that was a really great piece of advice.
I love as you're telling these different stories that each of those folks played a different but similar role. In one of the themes I heard was, hey, they gave me encouragement, or they continued to reach out to me, right? They were there to help when I maybe had some doubts or some uncertainty, and checking, because it can be lonely at the top, right? And fortunately you have a business partner, so that it's not as lonely, but having those outside resources can be helpful in terms of, hey, I'm having a doubt, or I'm struggling with something, or I just need a little confidence poke. And so having those
Hmm.
leaning into your life is awesome that you had that as you were building this business. So very cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
What's been your biggest learning over the last few years in terms of being a business owner?
Well, I'd say one of the biggest learnings that I've found or experienced is really just you kind of have to hope for the best, expect the best, but also plan for the worst.
Mm,
You really need to be ready for anything, I think, as a business owner, and that certainly comes with I think primarily from maybe personnel, or it could be certainly market dynamics. I mean, COVID is a great example of that. Who could have predicted that? But now that we have gone through that, it's easy to think about, okay, what if something like this happens again, or
right.
something that is massively disruptive to our business in a way? What would we do about it? So I think just thinking about situations where, what if this person were to take a new role or to take a new
Mm,
job, or what if this person has a family member that gets sick and they need to leave? How do we adjust the business to compensate for that, or to adjust to that? I think just thinking through strategically about the things that could potentially happen. I think I'm probably going to, butcher a little bit about the connection here, but I know there is kind of like a stoicism philosophy where it's like, you want to be expecting the best. Don't always think about the worst thing that could possibly happen and get dragged down to it, but always be prepared for the worst to
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
because it protects you. And that, if something does happen, you're like, okay, it's fine. I've already thought about,
Mm.
this potentially happening. So I have a plan. I'm ready for it, and we can move forward versus letting it be, massively disruptive. So I think that's maybe one of the biggest learnings that I've had is just to anticipate and to plan for um, adverse situations or adverse actions, and to be ready to respond to them.
Yeah, the business journey is certainly not linear, right?
Right.
There are peaks and valleys, or two steps forward, one step back. So yeah, I love what you're saying in terms of, hey, just be cognizant of the fact that there is going to be the step back, or there is going to be the surprise, or and be prepared in terms of how are we going to work through that, and know that it's just part of the journey. So yes, these things are going to come, and we'll figure it out, and just keep moving on. That's a great philosophy. So, in a similar vein, Steve, what's a one piece of advice or guidance that you would give business owners who are feeling stuck or discouraged in their business?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the business owner journey certainly is a roller coaster, and there's absolutely going to be a time where you're riding high and things are going great. And it's important to remember when things are riding high that something's gonna move and something's gonna change and it's gonna bring you back down to earth a little bit. But that's okay. You're gonna come back from it. I think really persistence and understanding that, like, I mean, the roller coaster analogy is perfect. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be periods of time where it feels like things are stagnant. And in those times, it's important to not get discouraged or caught up in the fact that, things are on a bit of a slide or maybe a little stagnant. Just to think about ways where you can lean into your strengths and stick with it. And ultimately, once you start kind of collecting a few wins or stacking a few wins, next thing you know, you're going to be back to that high point again,
Yeah.
of course, with the understanding that it's going to come back down again.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of a maybe just a steadiness and understanding that if you focus on the processes or the things that are really important to you as a business, the things that you stand by, your principles, if you stick to those principles and really hold people accountable to those principles in the company, hold yourself accountable to those principles as well.
Yeah.
If you're consistent with your effort and your energy, you can certainly persevere through the challenging times. So I would say, yeah, just to do your best to maintain an even keel when things are good, great. Things are never as good as they seem or never as bad as they feel. So
Yeah.
just to maintain the things that got you to where you are and persevere and maintain, I think is an important lesson.
To that point, I have a picture on one of my monitors that is of three different mountain peaks, right? And each one is higher than the one before. And the illustration is that, hey, if you're on the top of peak number one and you want it, and your goal is to get to peak number two, the only way is to go down.
Hmm.
So it's just a reminder of, there's going to be ups and downs, but it's just the natural part of the business journey. And I read this book, it's called Peaks and Valleys, but the concept of it is, when you're in that valley, when you're going down, it's about recharging and reflection and learning and preparing, right, for the next climb. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a natural part of the journey. So I find that reassuring, right? When those valleys do come, of like, okay, this is just part of it, and right, it's not the end of the business. It's just a natural evolution of the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. We use a system called the 12-week year at Tinker, where you essentially plan out big, 12-week chunks of time and you establish goals and then tactics to
Mhm.
achieve those goals. And one of the principles from that book is that as you're developing your goals for that 12-week period, you're going to feel this like great sense of optimism. I got these huge ideas. I'm going to do these great things. And then once you start to get into the the tactics, the nuts and bolts of all the little things you have to do to achieve that goal, or maybe once you're starting to actually work on those tactics, you can very easily feel like this is going to be way harder than I thought. Now that I know all the steps that it's
Yes.
going to take, all the effort that it's going to take, and then you might hit this, crust or kind of decline where you're like, this is just too much. I can't handle it. I'm not going to be able to do it. But again, just the more you can stick with it and stick to those tactics and principles and stick to your plan to achieve what you're hoping to achieve. Eventually you do come out on the other side and start to build some confidence that you can achieve those goals. So yeah, absolutely ups and downs for sure. Yeah.
Steve, as you think about the next 1 to 2 years, where's an area that either you're feeling stuck or you know that you need to sort out in order to achieve your long-term goals?
Yeah, I think as we've grown, the one of the biggest challenges or you know hurdles that we've come across is just systems and standardization and accountability to those standards. We have, like I said, 5 cafes now that all run well, but there's always improvements that we can do to help make the experience at those cafes excellent and super consistent. So I think for us as we've grown, it's again more process driven, systems driven, understanding how we can really nail down the principles that make a fantastic cafe and implement those principles into new spaces. So that's going to be a big one for us, I think, as we continue to look for new opportunities in the cafe space. Is really leaning into a standardization and operational processes that allow that growth to happen a little bit easier and a little less painfully.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, systems and processes
I love
for
it.
us.
The you're so right on in terms of, the standardization is so important. Oftentimes, right, we'll have the concepts or the ideas in our head, and right, and a couple of people can do it really well, but as we look to scale, right, it's got to be documented, right, in terms of, here is the way to do it so that we can then, hire people to run the system as opposed to hire people to do it their own way. Right. And of course, humans are humans. So then you mentioned accountability, right? Then holding people accountable to, doing it according to the system as opposed to doing it their own unique way, right, becomes super important. I'm sure many people who are listening have, heard or read the different stories about McDonald's, but right, they're the gold star in this in terms of document the system and then hold people accountable to running the system, and all of a sudden, the experience at every location is almost exactly the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's incredibly important and incredibly powerful too. And I think there's also, challenges certainly in our business and really any hospitality driven business is that sometimes there are things that are extremely difficult to standardize. Hospitality is so of the moment. You have to really be aware of the the situation that you're facing, the interaction that you're having with a person. A person might come in to our cafe that's just had an absolutely crappy day and they just are looking for a really great, break from their day and they just want a really nice drink. And that person's experience is very different than someone who's an absolute coffee nerd that wants to talk about, this cool single origin espresso that we have. So there are so many different situations where you can provide really exceptional hospitality. So it's the challenge of really distilling down like what makes a great hospitality experience and how do you adapt that experience to the person that you're speaking with, that you're working with at that time. So it's that standardization with the ability to be flexible that is part of the fun challenge for us.
Yeah, a little bit harder to map out a be flexible path, right?
Yeah. And it's also too, some people just naturally, given their skill sets, are able to do that just more naturally. Some people are just, it's not as, I mean, maybe as simple as people that are introverted or extroverted, or people that are able to have a little bit easier time kind of making that direct connection to a person at a cafe. So yeah, it's how do you build those skills? How do you develop those skills? How do you break down those kind of most important elements of a great hospitality experience? So these are all fun challenges. I like the challenge of figuring out these things or trying to understand exactly what that means. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not easy.
you just mentioned different personalities. So yeah, it's also important to clearly understand and document, well, what's our culture, right? What does hospitality mean to us, and how does that get manifested in the day to day, and right, and then who are the types of people that are that's their strength, and then right, make sure that we're in our recruiting, in our hiring, right, we're looking for those types of people, and therefore, right, we've all had experiences where we've brought people on and realized afterwards that, oops, we made a mistake, right? They're not really a good cultural fit. So yeah, the the phrase of hire slow, fire fast, comes to mind in terms of, right, making sure that we're investing the time in really, vetting people and determining, yeah, are they going to be the right fit for these critical roles of, right? They have to be adaptable and be able to provide that hospitality that you were mentioning. So yeah, all fun stuff to be working through, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, Steve, last question. Jim Rohn says that, or said that we become the average of the five people that we spend the most time with. So as you think about that quote, and I know you already have a business partner, so you're in a different spot than most business owners. What advice would you have for business owners who are feeling overwhelmed? They don't have a business partner, and they're trying to do it all and figure it all out on their own.
Ooh. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, thankfully now I feel like if you are truly in a situation where you don't have maybe access to even a friend network, I've found a lot of really interesting discussions that are happening on places like Reddit, business owners or people that are just going through similar challenges or maybe trying to learn a little bit more about an industry. So I feel like the online communities are certainly a great place to start if you really don't have that in-person network. But one thing that I kind of got lucky with this a little bit, but there may be an applicable example here, an opportunity to find something similar. But several years ago, Lululemon had a program that was more community driven. They wanted to collect some business owners, people that were, potentially like influential in the community, to get together to talk about things that they could do to, better the community, whether it be, just service projects or community related events, and through that group I ended up meeting a few guys here in town that own several different businesses. One guy owns a chiropractic kind of health company. Another guy is a gym owner. Another guy owns a distillery here in town, and we kind of hit it off through that group, and actually when that group disbanded, we actually stayed together and we're meeting,
Hmm.
monthly and quarterly, just to get together and share, wins that we had experienced through our businesses, experienced or, discuss more of the challenges we were facing. And while we're in very different industries, we all had a lot of commonality with the things that we were fighting through. But we also were able to talk about our personal lives really well. And, sometimes guys don't always do the best job at talking about their personal lives with other guys, but I found that those meetings and those discussions with those guys were just really helpful as we worked through different problems and challenges in our lives. Those guys, were a lot of people were having kids at the time, young kids, or just figuring out situations with new employees, or they're bringing on a new partner in the business. So the more you can do to find even a small network of friends, and do your best to maintain those relationships really strong. Go get dinner once a quarter and just catch up on life. And I'm sure that the situations that we face as business owners, a lot of people face in a lot of different elements of their life. It doesn't, you don't have to be a business owner to experience challenges in business, but people can still have really great perspective. So yeah, I would say if you can get together kind of a kitchen cabinet of a few folks that whose opinions you trust, and who are going to give you good, honest feedback, and provide you with just another uh, experience and another perspective. I think that's hugely valuable because yeah, we're all going through this, life together, both as business owners and just people in general. So to organize a group of friends I think a excellent use of time.
I can't count how many times a business owner that we've been working with in a group setting says, "Oh my goodness, it's so refreshing to hear I'm not alone," right? That
Mhm.
that these other people are having the similar or common, challenges, and right, it's such a relief to know that this is just part of the business journey. It's not that I've done something wrong or I'm messing it up and everybody else has it figured out.
Hmm. Yeah, we're all going through it. Even if we put on a, brave face or whatever we show on social media about this idealized version of the business or life, behind the scenes, we're all going through it. So yeah, it's important to find those people that can share that experience with you.
Steve, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people in your business owner journey. If they were all here with us today, what would you want to say to them?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you. I think all of the people that have been influential to me in my career. You brought up a really good point earlier, which is that they helped instill a bit of confidence in me. I think that sometimes I can be a little prone to self-doubt, and to have the backing, and knowing that someone not only has your back but knows that you can do something, that has been very, very influential to me in helping me to build the confidence that you need to go out and start something on your own. So yeah, just all I can really say is thank you for uh, those folks kind of instilling that level of confidence with me.
Awesome. Steve, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.